in hell. Now what does that mean, preacher? That means that Jesus had three dimensions, just like all of us had when he walked here on this earth. He had a spirit, he had a body, and he also has a soul. Now we know where his spirit went. His spirit went to God. His body went to the ground, and his soul went to hell. Now I got to pause and explain that for you. Because every time you see the word hell in the Bible, it doesn't mean hell fire. There are three denotations or connotations for the word hell in the Bible. Now the word hell in the Bible means Gehenna. Now Gehenna means hell fire. When John the Revelator says, all liars shall have their part in the lake that burneth with fire and brimstone. That's Gehenna hell. That's hell fire. Now hell also means Hades. Hades is where disembodied spirits and souls go to wait for the judgment. Jesus says, upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell, but hell there meant Hades. Because when Jesus died, he went to the Hadean world. He didn't go to hell fire. He went to Hades. And I'm going to clear that up for you in just a moment. I'm going to show you how that's divided and how that works. And then the third word for hell is Tartarus. Now, Tartarus is where everybody goes who fail to obey God. That's where everybody goes who fail to obey God. Those who fail to obey the gospel of Jesus Christ, those who fail to give their life to God and die that way, go to Tartarus. So hell in the Bible means Gehenna, hellfire, or it could mean the Hadean world. The Hadean world is the intermediate place where people go when they die. I'm going to get into that. That's next. Or it means Tartarus. That's where drunkards, drug addicts, people who don't like God, people who don't like church, people who don't live for God, people who die outside of Christ, they go to Tartarus and there to wait for the judgment day. Now, I'm going to get into Tartarus in just a few moments, and I'm going to show you what's going on in Tartarus. So when you die, when you close your eyes for the last time, when your friend died, when he got shot, died of an overdose, or whatever the case was, died in a wreck, your relative, when it doesn't matter. When you die, immediately upon death, your spirit leaves your body and go to God. That does mean you go to heaven. That means that that spirit that God gave you at birth goes back to him, because all spirits belong to God. Your soul goes to the Hadean world to wait for the judgment. And then we take your body and send it down to Mizell or Boyd or someplace, and they do whatever they're going to do with it, and they bring it in here. And they lay it out right there. And then we go through the motion. And then we take it next door. And we bury it. But you have not buried that person. That person still lives. All you buried was that body. Now, what dies? What dies? The only thing that dies is what God promised would die. And God said in Genesis 3:19, "Dust thou art, and dust thou shalt return." The only thing that dies is the body. Because Matthew 10:28 says, "Fear not man who can destroy the body, Fear not man who can destroy the body. You see, you can shoot Dr. Washington. You can shoot this preacher. You can cut this preacher. You can run over this preacher. You can blow up this preacher. You can destroy this body. But there is a thing that you can't destroy. There is a thing about me that over which death has no control. And that's why children of God ought to just shout for joy when you become a child of God and give your life to Jesus Christ. Because once you do that, then you can sing the song, death can do me no harm. Death can do me no harm. Now, the body is the only thing that dies. Now let me show you the process. And as I show you the process, let me give you a definition. The word death comes from an original word thanatos, and the word thanatos means a separation. So death then is a separation. It's not annihilation, it's separation. It's a separation of the body from the spirit, or the body from the soul. James chapter 2 and verse 26. The body without the spirit is dead. You see? So death is a separation. It's not annihilation, it is separation. Now let me get you into this picture. Let me get you into this picture. And as I get you into this picture, then I want you to see your loved ones. I want you to see your friends. And I want you to see how you are going to have to take this trip. This first circle represents the world. That's where you are right now. That's where we are. This is the world. This is 1997. This is where we are right now. But there's going to come a day when we will die. You see, the body dies. And when the body dies on this earth, we will bury the body and take it next door, and we will bury it. But the moment the body dies, the spirit goes back to God, and the soul goes to the Hadean world. The soul, that's the real you. See, the soul is the real you. When the body dies, you can no longer see. Remember the invisible man I told you about? When the body dies, you can no longer see you. You're gone. You're gone. When the body crumbles and when the body dies and can no longer work, when the doctor pronounced you dead, then the soul leaves. But where does it go? Where do you go? When you die, where do you go? When your friend died, where did he go? When your relative died, where did they go? That's the question. You are not dead all over. You see, the real you never dies. The only thing that dies is what you are looking at. That's me. The only thing that dies is what I'm looking at. That's you. But the real you inside this body does not die. So when the body dies on the earth, the soul gets up from that body and takes a trip. The real you takes a trip. And let me just say this to you. Let me just say this to you because you're going to take this trip. It's amazing. It is amazing how that all of us are going to take that trip and we don't even plan for it. We don't even plan for it. If you were going to New York, you start planning 7 days before so you can get a cheap ticket. Or 14 days before. So you can get a 14-day in advance. You call New York and you get reservation in the hotel. You call Avis, you call Budget to get a car rented. Or if you're gonna meet friends, you call them and tell them when you're coming. Tell them how long you're gonna stay. Then you tell your neighbor, you give your neighbor, if you can trust your neighbor, you give your neighbor a key and say, this is the key in case my alarm goes off. You tell your neighbor, pick up my mail. Don't let my mail gather in my mailbox. When the papers come, be sure you get the papers so folk won't know that we're gone. You do all that planning to take a trip to New York, but do not do any kind of planning for the trip that you're going to take when you die. We need to start planning for this trip. We need to start planning for this trip. That soul takes a trip. Where does that soul go? Where do you go? When you die, when you get up from that body, where do you go? You go to the Hadean world. That's where you go. You go to the Hadean world. And the Hadean world is divided into two different departments. The Hadean world is divided into paradise and Tartarus. Now, Tartarus down here is where the wicked will go. Paradise is where the saints will go. And let me bring it home to you. If you and your husband were driving along in your car, God forbid, but if it happens that that you had a wreck, a head-on collision with an 18-wheeler, and God forbid that both of you die in that wreck, the woman is a Christian, but the man is not a Christian. The woman has given herself to Jesus Christ, and she is a member of the church, and she loved the Lord, and she has served the Lord. But the man decided in this life that he didn't have time for God. But they both die at the same time. I come tonight to tell you that they both died at the same time, but they both didn't go to the same place. They didn't go to the same place. The wife, if she lived right, went to paradise. And the man who never gave himself to God, he goes to Tartarus. You don't go to the same place. Tartarus is for the people who don't love God, don't care about God, don't care about the church, don't care about serving God, don't care about getting in the world, don't care about living for God, don't care about anything that's right or moral, just want to have a good time, drink your whiskey, drink, and then smoke your reefers and sniff your drugs and run women all over the place. We don't care about anything. Well, that's all right. You're having your fun now. But one of these days, fun is going to be over. Going to be over. So you take that trip, paradise. The righteous goes to paradise, the wicked goes to Tartarus. And now you wait here. This is the waiting place. That's the waiting place. It's the waiting place. Now, people who died in 1979 are still waiting. Because the door to the Hadean world is going to open up one day, and only God, the Father, knows when that day is. Jesus doesn't even know. So they can't be the same person, because the daddy knows something that the son don't know. But that's a whole nother subject. Let me tell you how important this is. Jesus had the keys to hell, death, and the grave. And the only person that can unlock the Hadean world is the man with the keys. And his name is Jesus. Now, when he opens up the Hadean world, then you move to another area, and that's called the judgment. That's called the judgment. I got a letter the other day from a radio listener who said, "Preacher, I hear you talking about this intermediate place, but if people know what's going on, and if people are suffering in the intermediate place, what is the judgment for?" The querists were trying to tell me, you don't need a judgment. If all this stuff is going to be going on here, then what you need a judgment for? If you were to kill someone in Fort Lauderdale in cold blood, a cold-blooded murderer, now you know you're going to get it if you get